Yeah, okay. Yeah, Steven, I was going to ask you, did you get all that stuff okay? I'm sorry about uh, the files. Um,
Yeah, I got the email you sent.
okay. Yeah, Canvas did a little interface change, uh, I guess from January. Um, I don't know when it went into effect, but I noticed it on my other school's Canvas page. The interface changed. And Platt College, for a while there, was still the old interface. So when I upload zip files and photos and images onto the main assignments page, I'm used to doing it a certain way. And then suddenly, when I tried to do it last week, the interface changed. Um, and then Platt College, it changed over at Platt College. So I guess it's something that automatically just kicks in. And anyway, I wish they would tell you
Yeah.
what where because the whole right panel disappeared where you upload files and images and all of that. So and then you know how I put the videos on the assignment page, the videos from our class lectures.
Yeah.
Well, all I used to do is just paste a URL link and then the YouTube video would just show up there. But now you have to use the embed code to do it. So it's nice that they let you know that. I hate that. But anyway, how's everybody? Ruben, Lauren, how are you guys doing? Good.
Oh, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. Love your submarine blue lights, Ruben.
Hey, you got. I try to keep it mellow. Try to keep it mellow.
Yeah. Well, you do have some lighting on your face. Is
Yeah,
that is that another light or is that the computer light?
that's the computer. My lights come over top, so
Oh, okay.
or
Okay.
I can turn blue too.
It's one thing I've been noticing about all these things on TV now. Everyone's like all into their Zoom, their Zoom background
Setup.
and stuff. Yeah, it's like a big thing. And all these lights, all this lighting is like really popular now. These LEDs and stuff. Okay. I saw your work in progresses, and that's fine. I guess, Lauren, I really liked your campaign there of positively perfect, and
Yeah, it was my sister's best friend. Her and her other friend did like a dog walking business, and she had asked me if I can create some window decals for the cars
mm,
and obviously windows. And so I created them, and then she was trying to find somebody to print them, and I guess she just never like really got around to it and got busy with something else. So I don't even know if her business is still a thing now. So
mm.
I'm just um, I'm just kind of I have it in my files,
Yeah,
so I
well, just
figured like
develop it though. Even though it's not, you know, it's good for your portfolio, and you can
and I
maybe
figured I could
throw in
do a lot.
Yeah, do some other things, maybe things that they're not asking for, but you can add to the campaign. Uh,
Yeah, that's what I was planning on
here's
doing. I
my,
just wanted to start off with she wanted me to recreate the logo, and she said it didn't have to be exact. So I mean, I did what I could with the shadow part with the dog and the cat, but
mm-hmm.
you just said that's like really the only thing that she was looking for was just a recreation of the business card as a window decal. So
Uh-huh.
I kind of
Uh-huh.
did my own little spin off of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I like the way the cat fits inside the dog.
Yeah, like a
And
shadow. It's
yeah, and then Ruben, that Germex, what is that? I'm sorry, I didn't
It's
really
a brand of hand sanitizer.
hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I
Okay,
remember
all right, I got
in the discussion question you said, animals can wait, pick something relevant, and try to think of something relevant. I was like, hand sanitizer is pretty relevant right now. So,
perfect.
and also the Germex logos, just they kind of look a little lame. So I
Uh
was like, I
huh.
could redo that one, and I think the ones they kind of came up with look okay so far.
Okay,
And
okay.
yeah,
Can you
but
get some hand sanitizer mock-up? Can you get a?
yeah, I want to look some up for soon. But right now, I'm going to focus more on the actual advertising.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I want to do like a bus stop ad, on the bus ad, and then a magazine ad advertising. That's what I
Yeah.
want to do for
Okay.
this, and then I'll make the logo and make the mock-ups.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Very, very relevant. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Stephen, you are working on a background art. Was that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Now, is that for any particular kind of?
Yeah, it's for Destiny or Destiny 2, however you want it.
Uh-huh. Okay, and then there's more of that. I wasn't sure what the difference was between the first one and the second one.
Oh no, that I just put it there just to get out of the way from.
Just to submit something.
Yeah, because I don't like it being in my face. I'm like, get out of here.
Okay. Well, is that finished? Is that a finished thing, or are you working
No,
on that? Or
I'm still working on it.
okay.
I want to
Okay.
do some more stuff.
All right. Okay. So I'll assume that that's going to be something that develops.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then Brian, I think I made a comment on yours that yeah, sculpture is fine. It's just wasn't sure what you were thinking of doing.
So I was just thinking that in my portfolio, I wanted to add more things. So
Mhm.
I was planning on making like little sculptures and doing photography for it myself. Like if I was having my own brand and making stuff. So I bought tools to start doing that over the weekend, and I already
Uh-huh.
started. I'm just waiting for it to dry and just start painting it and stuff.
Okay. So what exactly are you making?
So like ashtray and incense holders.
Ashtray and incense holders. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, like I said, I'll look forward to seeing that seeing that work in progress in the next assignment. Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure a lot of what all of this was. I was seeing things, but I wasn't sure what it. Okay, so hand sanitizer, ashtray, incense holders, and background art for uh, video game. Was it, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then Lauren's doing her. You're doing your campaign on dog dog walking or pet services. Okay. Very good. Yeah, and at this point, this advanced project course is really kind of what you are wanting or needing in your portfolio to, enhance it and move in the direction that you want to go in terms of your career. So that's why, you know, rather than giving you something to do, I'm asking you to either take something that you've already done or create something new in terms of a campaign and, developing that. Now, there's a upcoming module that starts in February that's called Portfolio Preparation. Who is in that class? Do you know if any of you in that class?
I think I already
Portfolio.
took that with Patty.
Yeah, I took the last thing.
So
Let me.
Lauren and maybe you and Chris might be in that class.
I have my schedule printed out. Let me check it. Give me one second.
Okay, you don't have to tell me right now, but just, yeah, because that's not going to start for a while. But I was just trying to, I got everybody's name that's going to be in the other classes that I'm teaching, but I was just, Patty wanted me to see if I could teach that class, and I wasn't sure who was going to be in it. So anyway,
It's print portfolio development.
print portfolio development, correct, yeah. Is that,
Okay, yeah, I'm in that one.
okay, yeah, there's kind of two classes. One's called Portfolio Prep, and the other one's called Print Portfolio Development or something. So,
Yeah, I might be in yours then. I'm not sure.
okay,
Yeah, same.
okay. All right. Okay, yeah, because that'll be 3 courses, and the schedule's going to be might be a little strange for that, but I'll get to that when I so many things going, so many classes going now. Okay, so let's get into today's my little lecture for today, and that's going to be on a couple of subjects. Let me share my screen here and go to the Canvas page here. So I say that in this lecture we're going to discuss. Now these are topics that probably should have been addressed in the art direction and team projects module, because these are kind of things that art directors are responsible for. And some of the topics that come up are using vendors. Using vendors, marking up vendor costs, and billing practices, which I think I did mention at one point somewhere along the line in one of these classes, but I'll go over that again. And then just straight up communication practices in terms of our communication with clients, which is extremely important that we, touch bases with clients. But when do we do it? When is it too much? When is it where we're, actually starting to get on their nerves because we're calling them too many times or asking them too many questions, that kind of thing. I mean, questions are always good to ask. But man, when you have to, if you call clients like 3-4 times a day asking, questions that you could have asked all at once, it gets very irritating for a client to have to deal with that. So we'll touch upon that a little bit. But using vendors, and let me just kind of start in on this with. Oh, sorry about that. Stop. By saying that as an art director, one of your main responsibilities is to have a variety of vendors at your call. Hopefully when you call them, they're available. But I'm talking about anything from graphic designers, photographers, video people, editors, writers, illustrators, and obviously a lot of times printers, because you're buying out printing, or your company is responsible for the printing. So when using vendors, like I said in the art direction and team projects module, an art director's position is one of, it's a managerial position, but it's one of experience. And it's one where you have to know a lot of people out there in the business. And I remember when I started, the art directors that I used to work for, would have these big Rolodex card files on their desk, and anytime they needed an illustrator, I mean, they'd spin it around and they have like 4 or 5 illustrators that they use regularly. So they had a lot of go-to people for specific styles and, quality and, everything. And you're not necessarily using the same person for everything, because everyone has a specialty. So, in photography, if you need a food shot, you need a food photographer, and you need to, to have one of those people that you have worked with and know is valuable. I mean, it's invaluable to have that. So it's really, building up over time, over your career as an art director, you're building up your relationships, and hopefully you can, utilize these people. Graphic designers, even though you are a graphic designer, you might have a big project where you need to hire outside designers to, to help you out and give them and feed them the work, if it's a big book or catalog or something. So, if you're not if you don't have a resource, or you don't have resources, and actually you all have each other too. So remember that, okay? You all have each other to possibly use in any kind of freelance work. So if Lauren, you need an illustration from Brian, or Brian, you need, an illustration from, Ruben, or whatever you need, tap into each other and use them as a resource for that. Okay, as far as, and then it's the business of billing that into your job. And again, this isn't a class really on the business end of graphic design, but if you are freelancing and you're out there hiring out for outside services, then it's a matter of getting estimates from that particular vendor and explaining the job and and then there's a markup involved. A markup meaning that, whatever they're charging you, you mark that up and incorporate that into the cost for your client. That requires, again, some knowledge of estimating time. How reliable are your vendors? Are your vendors, when they give you and quote you a price, are you pretty confident that that's the price that they're gonna end up charging you? What is the risk level of the particular job? Now, this is something that's very interesting, and a lot of designers do this. First of all, let me give you just a general markup. Okay, so let's say I'm marking up services 20%. You're charging me $100. I'm in turn charging my client $120 for that particular service. 20% has always been a number that's been thrown out, at least in my day. Markups from printing to illustrative services, photography services, and so forth. A lot of designers have marked it up much more than that. I mean, you've heard when you go into a restaurant, you order a bottle of wine and they mark it up 200%, right? So restaurants are notorious for extremely high markups. And it doesn't mean that you can't do that or that it's unethical to do that. Well, there is an issue of ethics, at some percentage. I mean, you can't just do 3 times what it costs. But a lot of it has to do with the risk level of that particular service that you're hiring out. So designers from time to time will look at the service that they're asking for, and they ask themselves, well, what is the chance of this having to be revised a number of times? Okay, that's something that you want to consider. If it's that might be a high risk type service that you're asking for. You have a very specific, your client is asking you for a very specific type of photograph that you might not be exactly sure that, your client might be saying, well, I'll know it when I see it type of thing. Which means that if a photographer is charging you $500 a day for a shoot, another day, if the client doesn't like it, is going to cost you twice as much. So how do you handle those kind of high-risk situations? And that's where markups come into play, where you might mark it up 100% because there might be a very good chance that this thing has to be reshot. And you might have a separate side contract with your photographer when you hire that photographer and say, hey, if we have to do a reshoot, what are you going to charge me for a reshoot? In other words, if I shoot it at your studio and you have everything set up, all the lighting set up and everything like that, and we have to reshoot it, what is the reshoot cost? And then your photographer might say, well, I can reshoot it, for half the price. Same with printers. Printers are constantly having to reprint jobs. And if you have to do a reprint, the printer might say, well, okay, I'll reprint it for you, but you're going to have to pay, the full cost of the paper. But I'm all set up. I got everything ready, and so I can cut you a deal on a reprint. So those are the type of things that you have to kind of, play by ear and kind of prepare for, because the last thing you want is to quote a price and then have to have it redone, and then suddenly you're losing money. So just to give you an example of what a designer might do is they might say on a high risk type situation, vendor or job, I might mark up 100%. If it's kind of medium risk, where there'll be maybe a revision or two, who knows, hopefully we can get it right the first time, maybe a 40 to 50% markup. And then if it's a slam dunk type deal where you're hiring out a vendor and you've done it before, that they're going to do that same job and they're going to charge you whatever they tell you they're going to charge you, it's going to be that, then you still mark up, maybe 15, 20% or 10 to 15%. It all depends, but on the low end. Okay, but you always are making money from any outside service. It's never, you charge me 100 and I charge the client 100. No, okay, you're not gonna stay in business too long if you do that. So markups, and markups based on risk level, and a lot of that risk level can be determined by your initial consultations and meetings with your client. And that's where, the more you can talk about exactly what they want, the more you can get into, this is what I want, these are the colors that I'm looking for, that type of thing, showing them examples of things, the better you are in terms of risk level. The chances are you're going to get it right, at least the first or second time. And that's what, that's the best you can hope for. Some of the, and we all have to use vendors because, let's face it, we're just not, well versed in all of these specialty things. I mean, I like illustration. I like to do illustration myself, but I am not an illustrator. And if I need a specific illustrator, I got to hire one out, no doubt about it. I mean, I'm not going to trust myself to do it. If you're not comfortable with video or, photography or writing, things like that. I'm not a great writer personally. I mean, I could write some things, but I would definitely hire a copywriter if that's what was needed. And none of us can print, so we're always having to use print vendors. And we want to be involved in the printing too. I mean, we don't want to just as far as the money transaction goes, I prefer to just have the client deal with the printer as far as the money, cost of printing. But I want to be involved in the printing. I want to be there for a press check. I want to, hold those printers accountable to printing good work. So that's, it's important. So we're always going to have to do that. We're always going to have to hire out for vendors. And, do our markups. And so in billing, and I have here billing practices one time versus interim billing. Again, something to discuss prior to any job with your client. Always get the money issues resolved, okay? Now, you're not going to get the exact dollar amounts resolved. That might change. But get the process resolved as far as how it's going to work. So if you're going to do interim billing, and I would only do interim billing if the project was lengthy, it was going to take, let's say several weeks or several months even, then you need to bill, every 2 weeks or, once at the end of each month. Or even sometimes the way advertising agencies do it with clients is that they establish retainers where they get lump sums of cash per year, and then everything that's done within that year is absorbed in that retainer. Lawyers do the same thing. They ask for retainers. So, how you do it all depends on, how you want to do it, but interim billing might be part of it. So make sure that you discuss that before you start work. Like, we're going to bill every 2 weeks, and we expect, to be paid every 2 weeks before we continue on. So have your terms and contracts all set up. But for the most part, billing is going to be kind of a one-time at the end of the project type thing.
I actually have a question real quick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My question is, do you have maybe a mock-up already, or like a website we can go to have essentially like a mock-up for not a mock-up. I think it's the text already set up for a contract for basic contract for designers.
Um, I have my own, but there are plenty of those. If you just did a simple Google search for graphic design, whatever you need, invoices, change orders, whatever.
Gotcha.
You can download them, you can modify them, you can create your own by just copying and pasting whatever information you want, to customize it. But, many of those, and free, free downloads for that PDF files or whatever you want. But yeah, lots of.
I'm not that well literate in building practices and all that stuff, so I think it'll be better if I find someone that already has it.
Yeah, it's good to use a template to start with. And then, like I showed you the other day, I mean, for me and for a lot of designers, it's a very simple, non-itemized type thing, where you're just saying, okay, design services are going to be this. Unless your client really insists that you itemize out, you might want to itemize out specific things. If there are big chunks of cost, you might want to itemize that. But they don't necessarily really need to know every single thing that you bought and what you're marking up. And by no means do you ever have to tell them what your markup is on anything. And they don't need to know things like how much time you spent on this particular part of the job or things like that. But if you want to, I've seen some just incredibly itemized out forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you guys got that book, the Graphic Designers Guild Pricing and Ethical Guidelines book. They used to pass that out. That used to be one of the books that you got, but everything went digital after a while, so I'm not sure. But anyway, Ruben, online there's plenty. There's
Gotcha.
plenty of forms. I'll look for you too, and I'll see if I can, by next class, maybe upload some.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So that, again, not to belabor this point about billing, but I think it's something that you will feel much more comfortable doing a job knowing that that's all out of the way. You don't have to kind of worry about, oh man, we never talked about how much this is going to cost now, and now I have to tell them, now that I have to give them a price. So, make sure that that's kind of discussed. And now, as things progress, things might change. And we talked about change orders the last class. Change orders simply being things that really change the scope of a job. It's like they want you to do this, and then after they see it, they go, well, no, that's not working. We need to go in a totally different direction. Now that should really never happen in a job, and usually, the blame is on the designer for not really getting a good feel for what the client wanted. But there's a lot of times when, there are times when clients just, all kind of situations I could tell you. You're dealing with one person and then they leave the company and a new person comes in. And now you're dealing with someone entirely new that doesn't like the design or doesn't like the direction or wants to do their own thing, that are trying to make their name because they just started, and, all that kind of stuff. And, you go, wait a minute, that's where you have to stop them and say, wait a minute, this is the price that we discussed. And, if we're going to go in this different direction, we're going to have to renegotiate this contract here. So that could possibly happen. Okay. Getting into communication practices, and I could probably talk all day long about this. Communication is vital in any job, and you want to assure your clients that you're on top of things, that you're ready to answer any questions at any time, whenever they call you or whenever they email you, or hopefully they're not texting you. I have a policy of, we don't text, we email. That's the preferable form of communication. I don't want clients texting me when I'm in the car, on Saturday, asking me stuff. Also, your kind of office hours, when you're available. I mean, now we're living in this age of, especially of COVID and, but business is not 24 hours a day, okay? I mean, you have a set amount of time that you're ready to run your business. But as far as communication goes, the first employer that I worked for, who was kind of my mentor and used to really get on my case for all kind of things, but taught me a lot of things about, from his perspective. And a lot of times when we work for a company, all we see is from our perspective. We don't really see from the owner's perspective or their, our boss's perspective. But he used to tell me things like, he used to really get on me for not writing stuff down when he gave instructions. So when he gave instructions, especially verbal instructions are something that just remember that verbal instructions, there's no documentation for it other than what you hear. And when someone tells you something, it's really important to write it down, okay? Because now you have a documented account of what they told you. Verbal instructions can be denied. Verbal instructions can be misconstrued. Many times they'll say things like, I never said that, or I told you it was 8.5 by 11.3, not 11.7, things like that, right? But if you write it down, you always have accurate documentation of it. So in terms of communication, that's one thing that you can do for yourself. However, it's important that what my boss used to tell me is that you're always thinking ahead of what it is you're doing. Think ahead. So think of any foreseeable questions that you might come across that you can ask me now before I leave the office and go to this meeting. Because once I leave the office, you're on your own. And if you forget what I told you, when I get back, and if it's not done, that's on you. So, of course, I'm sure all of you that served understand that, understand that very well. Man, you screw up in the military and people die. So, you need to be on top of, instructions. And my first boss was, a vet, an ex-vet. And so he ran his business like that. And it was a very tight ship. But he always used to tell me that ask all your questions at once, if you can. I mean, obviously there's going to be questions that you have once you get into a job. But if you can ask all the questions at once, that's going to help me out because I can answer them all at once. And you don't have to keep bugging me throughout the day about little, all these little things like what is this and what is this. He also told me that if I tell you something, if I give you instructions, I'm expecting you to retain them. So if I tell you to do something, I expect you to retain that information. Now, I don't care how you do it. If you have to write it down, or if you have to speak in a recorder, or if you have to hold a tape recorder up to my mouth and I speak in it, I don't care. It doesn't matter as long as you understand what it is you're supposed to do. And that's how strict he was in terms of information, because he knew that we have to get things done by a certain time. I mean, deadlines are golden in this field. And if we blow a deadline, we could lose a client. So he was a big stickler on, communication and, internal communication between us and him in the office. But he had his communication between the client, because he was the only one that directly communicated with the client himself. So he used to say that many times he used to say, well, I'm not going to tell him that yet. I'm going to wait till the end of the day. And the reason he did that is because there would be other things that came up during that day. So at the end of the day, he can ask all of the questions rather than having to call him 3 times during the day. So it's little things like that that really are part of good communication. Don't let days go by without contacting your client. In fact, a lot of times maybe it's just a simple phone call saying that, we're just calling to let you know that things are going smoothly, and we'll be in touch in a couple of days. Just something like that is something that is really reassuring to a client. My thing has always been, my father, and I don't want to get into this big story about my father's store, but my father owned a grocery store. And he used to, be a big stickler about customer service. Like when customers used to come into the store, he always wanted us to acknowledge them and say, "Hello, how are you?" Just something like that. Just acknowledge that, you know that they're there. And not to constantly follow them around the store and, keep asking them, "Is there anything I could help you with? Is there anything I could help you with?" I mean, you see that today sometimes. And sometimes it's too much. It's like, no, get away from me. I'm fine. But when you do need help, you want to know that there are people there that are ready to help you. And just little things like that are common sense in any business. And my dad used to say that, you should be able to scan the store and look at people that need help. People that are kind of going down an aisle and looking up and, and like, looking around like, is there anyone here to help me? Walk up to them and then say, is there anything I could help you with? So we should be able to intuitively know, when our customers want help. And, when we do graphic design, a lot of times, they're in their office and we're in our office. And so we don't really know unless they call us or text us, or email us. But when we're sitting in a meeting and we're describing what we're going to do or a process or whatever, or design strategy, we have to be able to look at people and know whether they're getting it or not. And as a teacher, and of the many years that I've taught, I have to be able to look around a classroom and see whether someone is just not getting it. And it's pretty easy to do. I mean, it's pretty easy to see those students that are just entirely, whatever I said, they, just went, way over their head. They just missed it, or they're just confused. And so it's up to me to come up and say, it looks like you didn't get that. And they usually look at me and go, "Yeah, I don't know what we were talking about." So that kind of communication is really important, and your clients are going to love you for that. The more that you can kind of really, start understanding when they get it and when they don't. And the same with you. You need to ask those questions. And a lot of times if I think it's a stupid question, I will preface it with that. And I'll say, this is probably a stupid question, but I need to ask it. Or here's a good one. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to explain it to me as if I was a second grader. Okay? Because there are times when, I'm telling you, man, the way people talk, I'll see 2 guys talking, and then some guy will talk to me as if assuming that I understand the lingo and, things like that. And I'll just go, you're going to have to explain it to me like I'm a second grader. And they'll go, "Oh, okay. Well, actually this, and then they start explaining it, and then you understand it." I think the most important thing is that we understand what it is we're going to do, and then we end up doing a much better job, and we feel more comfortable doing it. And I want to really emphasize that, because so many times when you aren't sure what the instructions are, it becomes very frustrating, and it's really hard to, I mean, nobody wants to work knowing that what they do is, going to be a crapshoot. I'm going to do this, but I know he said something, but, hopefully this works. I mean, we want to be able to do something knowing that that's exactly what they wanted, or very close to it. So I wanted to bring that point up in terms of, communication. So those things I wanted to discuss today is basically this idea of using vendors for your work. Now, if you can do it yourself, great. But another thing too is that, I come from a generation where we had to use vendors for everything. Just type alone. I mean, typesetting. We had to send out for typesetters to send us back type. I mean, we didn't have computers to do it. Once we did start incorporating computer software, a lot of designers said, you know what? We're going to charge our clients as if we are the typesetters. We are now incorporating that vendor into what we do, and marking it up 20%. Nowadays, we do everything. We are the illustrators. We are the photographers. We are the designers. And so we need to incorporate those fees into our fee structure because we're doing all of these things. And that's, if any client wants to know why it is you're charging, why is it so expensive? Let's say if they say, why is it so, the cost so high? You can use this as an explanation. Is that, well, we're not hiring out for these services. We're doing it ourselves. And that's what these services cost. I mean, go out and hire a photographer to shoot a commercial shot, a product shot, and see what they charge you. Just, do that. Call up a commercial photographer, and you will find out that it's like $2,000 a day to shoot a product in their studio. And that's using their equipment. So, that's what things cost. Now, it's not that you're going to charge that, but make sure that you do that. So anyway, using vendors, marking up vendor costs, and making sure that your billing practices are understood by your client, and how you're communicating with your client. Very important topics in a client relationship that you'll need to, and all of this will happen over time and experience. And as you do this more, you'll get the hang of it. It took me an entire career to do this. And to address, Steve, your, in the other class that we had, the art director and team projects class, I think I wrote you a comment about how I was not really wanting to be an art director right out of the gate. In fact, I had no idea what an art director even did. And all I wanted to do was be a graphic designer and actually do the work, sit behind a board and, do my thing. And that's what I did. And I mean, that was fine. It wasn't until later on when you start gaining more confidence. And one of the things I wrote in your comment there was that the nice thing about being an art director is that you have much more control over your project. When you're a graphic designer, your boss is an art director or a creative director, and you're always having, to show them the work, and then they go, no, I don't like that, move this here, move this there, change this color, whatever. You tend to feel a lot of times that you're not in control. And so a lot of designers naturally gravitate to the art director position because of the control issue. Is like, now I'm the art director, now I'm in charge of this project, and now I'm the guy that gets to say, this is the image I want to use, this is the quality, this is the typeface I want to use, and so forth. So, depending on where you work, you might one day, want to take on that, have that control. But again, with that control comes a lot of other added responsibilities of making sure that you're managing other people. You know, you're the boss at that point. Not that the art director is the top guy, but you know, there's a lot of people that you're going to be managing underneath and hiring in terms of vendors and things. So, who knows? You might one day want to be an art director, or you might one day fall into that position just because of circumstance. Okay, I have not wrote a discussion for this class yet, but I will after we meet. And then the work in progress again will be a constant work in progress submission on Sundays to whatever you're doing. So follow that, you know, the next step of that. If you're not sure, you know, think of a campaign. Campaigns are always good. Campaigns are always nice to see in portfolio scrolls, you know, like the Hans and, you know, like that. Clients really like the idea of you being able to take a brand and expand upon that brand into different areas of that company. And I think that's really what you see mostly now in graphic design. Unless, of course, it's individual products or labels or things like that. But usually they fall into some type of campaign, you know, matrix. Okay. Any questions that anybody has for
No.
anything? Okay. Steve, I will meet with you on Thursday, and we'll continue on with InDesign. I saw what you did, and that's fine. And we're going to do some more things in that brochure, obviously. So we'll everything's working okay for you as far as your computer goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's all I have. I will see you all next week.
Sounds good.
See you next week.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Take care. Okay.